For my friends who keep asking me for recipes and explanations of how to cook with beans, which I do a lot, I'm going to make some meatless bean chili tonight, and I'll put it in the video and throw a recipe up with it for anyone who wants to try it out. Here's our beans. They've been soaking for 24 hours. I should have rinsed them once, but I usually get away without using reverse osmosis water. As you can see, the mung beans in particular are really starting to sprout. The lentils, if we're given the chance, with ketchup, they're all soft as well. And the rice, barley, etc. might not be sprouted, but it still really reduces the cooking time, which always adds to the nutritional value. So I'm going to pull out my colander and strain these. So dumped out what beans would go into the colander, and then I just keep adding water and dumping it out and get the rest of the beans out. Once they're all in the colander, give them a good thorough washing off. That started off as a cup and a half of various beans. Let that strain for a second. Big saucepan, little dollop of olive oil in it just in case I mess up and things try to stick. Never happens. And put in some water. We usually use reverse osmosis water for everything. Not keen on chlorine and fluoride. And myself, I just put about 3/4 of an inch higher than the beans with water in there. The tomato sauce, the juice from the mushrooms and the vegetables, they're all going to add to the liquids. And honestly, I'll probably take the lid off and boil most of this off when I'm done anyways. It's hard to calculate how much water you need after the beans have soaked, because they might be pretty well entirely saturated, and they might still need a bunch. So play it by ear and you simmer off the excess. So they are on the stove. A lot of times I'll actually boil the water in the kettle and pour it in to speed things up, but I've got some ingredients to fry up tonight, so I'm not going to worry about it. Got our cutting board, fry pan, I will frequently use vegetable oil, but I'm going to start off with some mushrooms. I'm going to use a little butter tonight to get them going. You don't have to fry anything. You can just chop everything up and throw it right into the pan for one flavor. But especially if you have meat, the meat carries so much of the savoriness that it's not really that important how you prepare the vegetables. But I'm going to fry the onions and the mushrooms at least, because I like the flavor better, in the fry pan, and then put them over into the beans. The beans need to boil away about 30 minutes. More doesn't hurt them. Of course, the longer you cook them, you're slowly taking away from the nutrition. slight change of plans. The bag that I thought was mushrooms was not. So if they get in there, they will get in there later. You have to plan for possibility if you're going to use this stuff as salsa with corn chips. You want to cut things in small enough pieces that they'll fit onto your chips easily, like little cubes. If you're just going to eat it out of a bowl like chili, you don't have to dice things up as fine. If you simmer it a long time for the flavor to go through everything, most stuff will fall apart. Fairly small pieces anyway. I usually use a manlier knife, but this one was in my hand. I just scrape it onto the little board. Into the fry pan. Should get your garlic cut up fairly early on. I've heard that after you crush or cook your garlic, or crush or cut your garlic, it takes about 15 minutes for certain of the enzymes to form that you really want in your diet. So give it a chance to set up those chemical reactions and make those good enzymes. Get it cut up a few minutes before you throw it into the dish and start cooking it. I do have a beautiful stainless steel garlic press, but not tonight. It's got a headache. And again, I used about a cup and a half of beans before I started soaking them. So to those of you who made 3 cups of beans, and you know who you are, you'll want to double most of these ingredients. The onions are starting to fry. Normally I would throw the mushrooms in there with them, sliced up thickly, and the thing with the mushrooms is to get them on the pan and fry them long enough that the edges start turning brown. If you want a lot of mushrooms, you might have to do them in 2 or 3 batches. But that really adds a lot of flavor to the mushrooms, actually searing them and frying them until the moisture comes out and they turn brown in the fry pan. Otherwise, you can just throw the mushrooms straight in and let them cook with the beans, with the sauce, different flavors all. Now that things are boiling, I am going to put a lid on the pan. The beans are in, just to soften them up a little bit more. The red pepper, very important to the taste of the chili, I find, and it takes a lot of cooking to really soften it up. So it's a good idea to get it going sooner rather than later, whether you're going to boil it or fry it. You want to get it cut into small pieces, both for scooping on your chips and to help it cook a little bit faster. There, the peppers and the garlic are now in with the beans, simmering away. Jalapeno, that's a big one. They, another important element for the taste, just not quite the same without it. I don't like it in big jolts, and I don't like my chili really hot. So it just gets one cut up into small pieces. I take the seeds out. I don't know. When you get them on nachos or something, I notice the seeds are still in them. It's just how I do it. Okay, a little heads up, don't rub your eyes or pick your nose after that. Dried chili pepper. This is something else that really takes the heat level up quickly. I do not go for a lot. Good inch of one of these diced up in there. You can feel it in your throat when you're eating it. You'll want some variety of tomatoes in there. Combination. We had a little bit of spaghetti sauce left from last night's meal. Just throw that in there. Canned and diced tomatoes. Try to get the ones that are as natural as possible without sugar added, or especially not corn products. A few seasonings and oil don't hurt though. In the winter time, it gets made with primarily canned tomato products. Nothing tastes the same as fresh tomatoes, especially when they're in season around this part of the world. And the Romanos, although those are pretty firm, they don't seem like they're going to be that tasty. The Romano tomatoes are usually more flavorful, and I prefer them. Again, if you're going to try to get it out on a chip as a scoop and season it for a dip, you want these cut very fine, and if you're just making chili out of it, they don't have to be cut as fine. They'll come out on your fork just fine. Here's what it's looking like with all the tomatoes thrown in. The beans cooking away. Everything's adding their juices and waters. We're about to throw the onion in there now. It's over here frying away. They're not really browning up yet. Okay, seasonings. Somewhat to taste, of course. Probably not that good for you, but I always like some soy sauce in there to brown it up, richen it up. Little Worcestershire, especially if you've got meat in it. I like to add a little turmeric. Garlic. garlic salt. Bit of oregano, but I find too much oregano and it really starts to taste Italian rather than Spanish. And about 2 to 3 tablespoons of chili powder. Which is basically ground cumin and ground chilies. Sometimes I put a little bit extra ground cumin in for the chili flavor without the heat. A nice slice of lemon is great if you have some. Or some real lemon juice if you don't. Especially if you're making a salsa for a chip, I find that works nice. And a little bit of something sweet just to take the acidic edge off of the tomatoes. Sugar, honey. I'm using a little dollop of maple syrup. I'm going to need a tablespoon or two. Just enough to take that acidic edge off. And that's about it. Of course, you can add whatever else you like. We've often put cubed zucchinis in with it. Played around with eggplant. We usually pre-cook the eggplants in the oven a while though. If we're going to add more beans to thin it out a little further, we add more rice, not pre-soaked even. If you like kidney beans, the traditional beans, go ahead, throw them in there as well. Just watch your bean to sauce ratio. You don't want it to wind up tasting like porridge. This needs mushrooms, so I'll probably fry up some mushrooms tomorrow. Throw them in here with it, and like most chilies, it's going to taste better when it's warmed up. So let it simmer for a few more minutes. Lid on. If you're happy with the amount of sauce and moisture in there, lid off and let it evaporate. If you need it a little less watery. And then I wouldn't eat it tonight. You can, it's fine, but it's better warmed up. And so I'm going to personally fry up some mushrooms tomorrow. I'll throw them in with it, and I'll divide it into bowls about the size I use for each serving in the refrigerator. I'll put one of those bowls at a time and either heat them up again on the stove, or if I'm in a hurry, just throw them in the microwave, eat them with corn chips, or eat them just straight in a bowl for chili.